Hi, my name is Jordan. I'm going to talk to you about my experiences at the Indiana State Sanatorium. A little bit of experience just in the fact that I do this on a regular basis. One of the things that me and my wife like to do is find just spooky places to check out. And that's kind of how I got involved in the process. Is my wife, Paige, was looking around online and saw that the Indiana State Sanitarium had opened up for investigations. We thought that that would be a pretty fun thing, interesting thing to do, so we decided to book a trip. My role in the project would be to operate the ghost box. The ghost box, or the spirit box, if you're not familiar with it, it's a little AM/FM radio that switches between channels very quickly. And I will demonstrate it just so you can hear just the kind of stuff that it sounds like.
Text box. Scanning. FM.
That's just quickly between channels, and if you're able to pick up any words out of it, supposedly, you know, that's the spirits talking to you. And so just for an idea of what it sounds like. You see, like, you can pick up things out of the static as it's flashing through, and you know, he heard a couple things there even. It's always interesting, the stuff that comes through in the box. But the way that we do it is called the Estes method. And this is popularized Spirits of the Stanley. It was a YouTube series. It was a YouTube series that that a bunch of ghost hunters did. And it's called the Estes method because they developed it in Estes, Colorado. Is it Colorado? Okay. That, I have headphones plugged into the box, and on top of the headphones, I actually have like noise canceling headphones. And that is so that I can't hear anything the people around me are saying, because if we just had the box open and let's say Paige says, "Is there anybody here with us?" Everybody in the room, even subconsciously, is going to be looking for a response to that makes sense. So, because this way, I'm just saying what I believe I hear, and if it makes sense, that's great. And you'll find that oftentimes it does make sense. Sometimes it sounds like we are just straight up having a conversation. There's sometimes things come through that don't make sense until later, and occasionally it just doesn't make any sense at all, but you have that. When I'm doing it, I'm trying to focus. I have my eyes closed and I'm just concentrating as much as I can on the words, and I kind of envision the third eye opening and like an antenna coming out of my head, I guess. And I think that just kind of helps me get into the mindset of what I'm doing here. On a guided tour with one of the groundskeepers, and he gave us a little bit of information about the buildings and the grounds that were there. This guy was hardcore ragging on the state, though. You know, he's like, "Oh, the state sucks. I especially hate all of the government." And that entrusted me with this thing. He said, "Don't tell the state that I said that, you know, but they just handled everything super poorly here. It's their fault that everything was terrible, you know." He was very upset about being filmed. He went on a tangent about his ex-girlfriend at one point, and I just, you know, this might be like a little mean, but I just didn't care for him because he was being a little too friendly with some of the younger members of our group, and I didn't really appreciate that. And also, he was kind of mean to me, so I didn't really like that. But he did show us around the buildings and kind of give us, a little bit of history that I didn't know. So, in spite of that, I did like the tour. The actual sanitarium, to me, it's very fascinating because it looks like every scary movie you've ever seen or every video game. There's, you're walking down these long corridors and you'll come across just a wheelchair sitting by itself with like a doll sitting in the chair or something like that. And you have the paint is peeling off of the ceilings. There's broken glass. It's a very fascinating and kind of spooky atmosphere in there. And I just, if nothing else, I ate that up because it was just, I loved it. I loved being there for the most part. Just because it was interesting. Did not particularly get any spooky vibes, which do on, certain places. But for here, spookiness, no, not really, other than maybe like at certain points during the actual seance. But a lot of sad vibes. Definitely got sadness, for sure. For the seance, to prepare ourselves, we kind of had like a little get-together outside of the building, and we went over the plan. Hale anointed everybody with oils, and we did some chanting, and I kind of, there was an old chair sitting off to the side, and I just sat by myself and just kind of tried to focus my thoughts and get ready for my part of it, with the envisioning of the third eye and the radio tower stuff. Do the spirit box, it definitely wears me out, honestly. For about 2 days after we got back from this, I was just sluggish and tired, falling asleep. I know, the day after we got back, I was just dragging all day and I had to go to work, and I just, felt like I was wading through water in slow motion. During the seance, I'm focusing way too hard on trying to pick out words that I'm not exactly paying attention to what it says most of the time. But I did realize that I was catching names a lot. I think I got the names of about half the people in the group, and I got definitely some numbers. I don't think that I got any particularly interesting or standout voices, because sometimes you will do that. I've heard like, little kids before, not necessarily here. I did get some growling towards the end. You will get growling and yelling occasionally. And then also like a decent amount of piano music, and I got a lot of numbers too. And it's interesting because I've done this quite a bit. Like I said, it's just one of the hobbies that my wife and I have, and we've done it at the Whispers Estate, which you may be familiar with if you've followed some of Jasmine's other work, because she has videos on it. Done it at the Whispers Estate. I've done it at the Hannah House. We've done it at our home.
All over the city.
All over the city, honestly. But I've never gotten quite so many numbers before, and we got quite a few numbers here, and I thought that was very fascinating. And Matt, in his video, made the observation that a lot of the numbers lined up with room numbers, which I thought was very fascinating. And when we were driving home or listening to the tapes at one point, Savannah actually equated some of the numbers with dates, which actually made sense, and that was very interesting to me. At one point during the seance, I got very cold, and it felt exactly like someone was standing right next to me, very close to me on my left side. And it was basically like just this part of my arm got very cold, and it like someone had touched me. But it was not cold in that room, I'll tell you that, because
hot as heck.
it was hot as hell. We were doing it in the middle of the summer. There's no ventilation up there. We actually tried to open the windows, but they were nailed shut, which is understandable. Not a lot of room for explanation as to why I would get very cold. I felt like Lorena being there and working protection for me helped quite a bit, because when you do these things, you get negative entities talking to you, and they will do a lot of name calling, say a lot of nasty stuff. They'll growl, they'll scream, and they're trying to get you to leave. But between Lorena's protection helped quite a bit, and Jasmine performing the Three Kings ritual to kind of draw aggro from all of that, I felt like it was we were able to have a much nicer talk than you can necessarily have without those kind of things, because sometimes they will just start they'll start cursing you and yelling you immediately. And we had, the vast majority of the seance we were able to talk. And now nobody can keep it away 100%. Once they find out, they're going to come and try to disrupt it. I feel like that was one of the more productive seances we've ever had. We gained like a little bit of knowledge and insight into the lives of the residents, the denizens of the asylum, of the nursing home, of the tuberculosis ward. There was, just watching the video, there's parts where it sounds an awful lot like a child discussing being abused, and that's pretty heavy stuff. But I think if these spirits want to talk to us about that we have almost a duty to listen to it, so they can tell their stories. And I think that helped out quite a bit. We got that from the seance. It was a good one. The group did well. Everybody had a role that they were assigned to. And I feel like everybody, honestly, we performed like a well-oiled machine. We didn't even do a dry run of the ceremony, or not the ceremony, but the
ritual.
The ritual. We didn't even do a dry run of the ritual, which we had to do, at the Whispers Estate maybe 1 or 2 times, just to make sure that everybody can get done what they're supposed to do. Everybody who had their role, Kat and Holly performing middlemen, Jasmine doing the Three Kings ritual, Lorena helping out with protection, and Paige running it with Hale. And then Savannah, I believe, was doing pendulum work. Yeah, Matt asked questions, Nick kept time. The whole group did very well overall. So after the seance, and we kind of explored a little bit, and then we went back to the main building for a debriefing, and we kind of made base camp there, because it's where they handle their business from. But it used to be the children's ward back when it was a tuberculosis center, and it's currently the only building that has like working electricity and plumbing. And it was an interesting experience, because after doing that, you're always very tired, very worn out, a little bit loopy, for me personally, and I think Jasmine was as well. So we went back and we tried to just kind of collect our thoughts for a moment, eat something, drink something, kind of regain some energy. And then we listened back through the tapes of the seance. And I always like doing that, because I don't get to hear, I'm only hearing half of it from my point of view with the headphones on, I don't hear the questions we're asking, and I don't remember everything I say, and then I don't know if it makes sense. So listening back through the video is one of my favorite parts. So we listened to the seance first from my side, and it was, like I said, it was just interesting hearing a lot of things, trying to put together what things might have meant. And then we listened to the audio from Jasmine's Three Kings ritual, and that was pretty interesting too. There was, it was kind of scary, you know. There was speaking in tongues, a lot of yelling, cursing, a whole bunch of spitting. Threats. I believe that I was that I was threatened to be killed a couple times. So, you know, that's in there. We listened back through all of that, and then we kind of realized that, you know, there was some interesting overlap between the Three Kings ritual and the seance. I was going to put that on Patreon, just layering some of the videos together to show examples of some of the ways that it went together. Go to the State Sanitarium in specific. I would definitely recommend it. It was, even if you don't believe in the paranormal or the spiritual aspect of it, it is just an interesting, very fascinating look into history. If you go, I would recommend very solid footwear. You want to wear boots, I would suggest. I wore boots because there's a lot of slippery, uneven ground all over the place. There's trash and debris. Lots of places where you could fall and hurt yourself. So I think just very solid footwear helps out with that. Make sure to bring flashlights because there's no electricity other than the one building. So the main grounds, you're not going to be able to see if it's dark. Extra batteries for everything. I believe that a lot of our batteries died. I know we brought a flashlight that died very quickly, and I think all of the recordings, 3 or 4 different people recorded, and most of them failed in some way at some point, which is something. So bring backups of batteries, camera equipment, recording equipment, and I would counsel anytime you go to some place like this, but the sanitarium in particular, be respectful, because this is people's homes. This is a place where people lived and unfortunately died, and it's just, you need to be respectful of that, because you don't want to be making light of it. You know, it's almost like a graveyard, I guess. Little advice for getting into paranormal investigating: research local places, research haunted locations around you. You just start out by finding places that you want to go, and it isn't necessarily always someplace, a spooky old house or a graveyard or something like that. There are, you know, we've found locations like public parks that supposedly have, you know, activity, and it, like, you can go just about anywhere. If you want to have equipment, research the equipment you want, find out how it works. With the ghost box in particular, a lot of people will get frustrated trying the ghost box for the first time, and they think, you know, oh, I can't hear anything, or it's all gibberish to me. And that's okay. You just have to keep going with it and keep trying, and you will get better as you go. The other things about the ghost box is a lot of it is about intuition. So specifically, if you're using the Estes method, it's about what you feel like you're hearing. That's just as important, you know. Meditation helps. At least for me in particular, I can speak to the things that I do help me. The picturing of the third eye, The closing my eyes helps out a lot, just to block out a lot of, the extra stimulus, just to help you actually hear it. The original Estes method, they actually have a blindfold, we just don't keep one with us, but I always keep my eyes closed when I do this. Yours feels spookier to me because you get a lot more negative energy there, and to be honest with you, I get bad vibes every time I'm in the house. I'm always looking over my shoulder. I always feel like things are next to me. It's just different because it's a smaller location, and it's scary. Now, the Sanatorium is solemn. You're walking into a mausoleum. It's very interesting because, if you don't know, the place was cleared out in such a hurry that there is still a lot of people's personal effects in there. And walking through, you find things that catch you off guard. You find pictures colored by children. You find people's personal effects. I found a picture that kind of struck me. It was an older gentleman, and I remember him. I can picture him in my head. He's wearing a plaid shirt and a cardigan, and he's smiling. And I just think, this man lived his life here. He was a person who had hopes and dreams, and he left his mark on this place. Whether or not he's passed away at this point is not necessarily relevant, I guess, but because he's left a part of himself there, part of his life. And sometimes you have to take a moment to think about how much, you have to take a moment to think about how important that is, that other people have these lives that are as full as your own. And that there's just a lot of moments like that you can find in there. I found a letter from someone's mother, and it touched me because, they mentioned, we're putting money on your books. I'm sorry that X, Y, and Z event happened. Please call home. And it's just, to me, it's something that was made from a place of love and sent to a loved one. And now it's an item that was made from a place of love, and now it sits abandoned. And that's that whole place.